Dear learners, welcome to EPG Pathshala. I am Munish Ahlawat from Institute of Hotel Management, Dehradun. Today, we shall be taking module number 30 titled Planning for Volume Catering under paper Food Production Operations and Management. The learning objectives of this module are: understand the concept of planning related to volume catering, understand the preparation procedures in volume catering, evaluate the menu on various factors important in quantity food production, what are the various stages in order to control the preparation of food in quantity, learn the objectives of food cost control. Introduction. Food service operations need a detailed planning for smooth performance, and so in volume catering it becomes essential that the services are well planned and the staff can produce good quality food without getting fatigue. The catering profession as we know it in this century has a long and intriguing history, the beginnings of which are found in the civilizations. From the records and the art of the Greeks and Romans come depictions of banqueting scenes filled with food presentation, table customs, decorative arts, and recipes detailing a range of foodstuffs startling in its variety. Production planning involves not only determining the amount of food that needs to be prepared and served, but also deciding on the number of personnel that are needed when each item should be prepared, on what type of plate or serving dish it should be placed, what other equipment will be required, and what other services or events will be taking place that may require special items, flowers, or create delays in service or cleanup. Quantity food production planning and preparation. Separate production schedules may be required for each department involved with the servicing of an event. For example, the food preparation department will need to know what an item is to be served and, in turn, when the cooking process should start. The food servers will have to know when the event is starting, actual time of serving, the beverages, and time scheduled for the service of the food. Audio-visual equipment or displays may be required. All these factors are considered for production planning. For large operation in hotels, this planning may be done by the catering coordinator or manager. In smaller operations, it may be done by the manager. Pre-preparation and preparation, portioning, various mechanical and other measuring devices or controls may be used to ensure that restaurant or bar is in fact processing the products in the most efficient manner. For example, the bartender should be required to measure ingredients when mixing drinks. Ovens in kitchen should have thermostatic controls, since the temperature at which the meats are cooked dramatically affects the amount of the finished product as well as the taste. In addition, management may require that a thermometer be inserted in meats to ensure that the final cooked temperature does not exceed the optimum desired. One should note that preparation and pre-preparation are listed separately, since in large operation or in which there are many independent units such as a chain with a commissary, a transfer record may be required. For example, one school district may purchase totally prepared proportioned salad. Another school district may prepare all the salads, greens, tomatoes, radishes at a central commissary, which is in fact is pre-preparation, and then to each individual school the amounts ordered for that day or that week. The final preparation or dishing up into salad plates may be completed at school itself. Another school district, however, may just issue the crates of lettuce, tomatoes, and radishes to each school, or each school may order directly from a local purveyor. The end product may exactly be the same, but it is obvious that different types of records must be kept since the preparation system as a whole is different. Correct recipes must be used and proper amounts must be prepared for the predicted number of persons. Excessive leftovers may indicate either improper preparation procedures or inadequacies in the forecasting by the sales department. The preparation department is also faced with the challenge of feeding personnel and the proper utilization of leftovers. Fully utilizing all products is a necessity for well-run food operations. Finally, all food must be handled carefully to avoid waste while at the same time presenting it to the guest in the most attractive manner possible. Over-portioning may result in the great deal of plate waste, but it is difficult to distinguish between the plate waste caused by the over-portioning and that caused by poorly prepared or sloppily presented food that makes the student, patient, or guest lose his or her appetite. Supporting and ancillary function areas. Sales and forecasting. Sales encompasses any task or function whose purpose is to increase the volume of sales or to predict the volume of sales. Advertising, promotion, merchandising, menu planning, and even the training of the personnel to promote sales may be included in this category. Although normally not considered a part of the function and beverage controller, it is obvious that the effects of the sales department will be felt throughout the food and beverage operation. A device such as a free dinner or perhaps a special sale that changes operating percentages must be examined by the controller to determine whether or not the method is effective for the operation. External auditing. Auditing and accounting are usually handled by the same department, but auditing by an outside company must also be performed. Since the accounting department normally receives and dispenses cash, obviously its action must be verified as to accuracy and honesty. Safety and sanitization. Sanitization is listed as an ancillary department since normally most of its primary functions are not directly concerned with the actual control or processing of either food or beverage. Certainly, however, no establishment can function without an adequate housekeeping department. Indeed, lack of such department may increase cost. Food and beverage rejected by customer due to dirty glasses or plates may be thrown out, thus increasing food cost. Each time a cook or a waitress rejects a plate or utensils because it is dirty, this causes an increased labor cost due to the time involved. Personnel. In addition to the previously mentioned areas, various other departments may be involved in the complete cost control system. They may not be directly concerned with the day-to-day operations. Without adequate training and staffing, no department personnel can properly perform the task to which they may be assigned. Thus, the personnel department may assume a direct responsibility to ensure that the performance standard established by management are carried out. Time and motion studies may be performed so that improved methods of operation may be designed and implemented in order to lower payroll costs or to improve quality and service. Menu planning. A menu is a list of dishes served or available to the served at a meal to the customer in a restaurant, it is a list of dishes from which to make selections for a meal. To the cook, it is a list of dishes to be prepared. But our familiarity with the menu simply as a list of foods tend to hide its importance as a management tool. Nearly every aspect of the operation of a food service business depends upon the menu. In fact, it is fair to say that the menu is single most important document in the business. Purchasing, production, sales, cost accounting, labor management, even the kitchen layout and the equipment selection of a new facility all are based on the menu. The basic menus that can be included in a volume catering program are breakfast, lunch and dinner menus, hors d'oeuvre menu, reception menu, special function areas, a la carte menus, desserts or salad menus, beverage menus, wine liqueur, cordial and specialty. Each menu in the program represents a selection of items presented in the format identified for a specific meal service. The identification of specific menu item is based on 6 major factors relative to a catering operation. Style of servicing determines equipment, staffing and food production needs. Price range determine both monthly forecasted catering sale volume and the anticipated annual profit. Menu item selection is based on the skill level of the kitchen production personnel along with management goal and objectives for the overall catering operation. Cuisine orientation helps determine the pricing structure of the menu. Program food production capabilities identify menu item within the cuisine that can be successfully produced for the available equipment and the skill level of the production personnel. Awareness of the customer needs is reflected in a knowledge of current trends in dining and eating patterns. In volume catering establishments, there are factors which influence menu planning. Cost, ease of preparation, base of service, incorporation of leftovers, cyclic menu. Food production and production planning. This exercise comes under the purview of the executive chef, who further involves the outlet chefs to forecast the volume of business based on the trends and plan the production keeping in mind the availability of the ingredient, lead time required, manpower involved and scheduling the same, and the equipment required. This exercise is important and should be done meticulously to reduce cost in terms of overproduction, which leads to wastage. Controlling wastage to ensure that only high selling items are sent to the pastry shops from bakery or laid on buffet with the view to increase revenue. To cut down on wastage on account of items returned to the bakery or the kitchen from the buffet during breakfast and lunch service. The returned items, if are not in a condition to be used, has a direct bearing on the food cost. Process an item-wise summary of all the items sent to the pastry shop, buffet, returned to the bakery or kitchen is prepared. Based on the figures, the return percentage is calculated for a particular period. Comparative figures for the previous few months meal period when the buffet was laid are also mentioned against each item. On the basis of the report, a pattern can be formed and inference drawn as to which item sells the most and items which hardly sell. This report is sent to all concerned and also to the chef so that he can monitor his production accordingly. The return percent has a direct impact on the food cost of the bakery. Production cost control. When we are planning the production of a buffet, we emphasize on the use of local ingredients and the seasonal ingredients. The use of imported ingredients is kept minimum. Also, that the standard recipe are followed with the standard procedures and standard portion control, portioning tool. Food cost is generated by the controls on a daily basis on the basis of the ingredients withdrawn from the stores via requisitions. They also derive a potential food cost by the means of item sales summary. Various transfers, spoilages, the actual and potential food cost is compared and the discrepancies are then sought to. If the difference is high, the same is notified to the chef and finance controller. Hence, the chef is under a constant check to reduce wastages, do apt amount of mise en place and record wastages. Maintaining production, quality and quantity standards. The chef of the kitchen is responsible for the same again. A plate study is done initially to understand the same. The plates that leave the kitchen for the guest table are weighed, and once the plates return, the wastages e-weighed again. If there are consistent wastages on the plate that return from the restaurant, the chef is then suggested about the portion sizes and also about the quality, flavor, textures of the food. In case of the portion size is thought to be bigger, the same is relooked into. Major stages in controlling the preparation. There are many stages in controlling the preparation, which together should reduce overproduction and possible loss from inefficient purchasing and excessive portion size. Standard recipes. To ensure that all dishes offered to the guest are properly costed and favorable selling prices are fixed based on the cost of the item for increased revenue generation and control over cost. To ensure that portion weighs dished out are as per standard norms. A recipe card is prepared by the chef mentioning the name of the dish, details of ingredients to be used. Quantity wise, the number of portions that will get prepared. This recipe card is handed over to the F&B controller for costing. Based on the ingredient, the rate of the ingredient is ascertained from the inventory module in OSS. Having determined the rate, the cost is noted in the recipe card after conversion as per actual weight of the ingredient required in the dish. For perishables and butchery items, yield cost is considered. After this is done, the cost as well as suggested prices are emailed to the F&B manager and executive chef to decide on the selling price. Once the prices are approved and the menu implementation schedule is fixed, the cost as well as selling price is fed in the micro system. The items input by the systems department are thoroughly checked on the basis of items report generated from the micros. The outlet is informed to go ahead and start offering the items to the guest. Note: the cost of ingredient used should be in line with the sale achieved on a particular day. Food cost will show a huge variance in any outlet where the recipe cards are incorrect. Standard yield. To arrive at a correct cost of ingredient, perishable and butchery for items that has to be processed after removing waste so that appropriate selling price can be fixed. To ensure that such items are correctly processed with the latest possible wastage in an effort to reduce cost and arrive at a consistent cost. It is an important tool to ascertain the quality of the material supplied by the vendors, and if deviations occur at receiving level over the standards fixed at the time of rate negotiations. Process. The item is picked up from perishable or butchery store. The item is weighed in, its unprocessed stage and details noted. The item is handed over to the chef and requested to process it. The finished product is again weighed. These details are also noted. The yield obtained is compared to the existing norms and done over again. The yielded price is thus calculated, eliminating the waste and determining the usable cost of the ingredient. Since we always use the yielded weights, contract rate, yielded weight. This is the yield rate which will be considered for costing the recipe in which this ingredient is used. This is compared to the normal yield that has been made for items which is issued to butchery and received back in processed stage. If there is any abnormality in the wastage, the executive chef and materials manager is informed. Standard portion size. Whilst dispensing the order, it is critical that a standard portion size be followed as a standard recipe will yield a standard batch size and certain number of portions. If we over portion, then we will adversely affect our food cost or profits, since there can be loss in incremental sales if the dish happens to be very popular. Since the guest will need not order more if already a bigger portion is given to the guest, and in case we underportion, then we will be cheating the guest and hence ethically wrong. Note: to control the food cost as well as to maintain the standard portion of the dish based on the recipes received from the chef. To analyze whether the balanced food in the dish returned unconsumed by the guest is due to taste or due to large portion size. Before the dish is served to the guest, it is weighed and details noted. After the guest has eaten the same dish before returning to the dishwashing area is again weighed. The difference between the two weights is the weight of the food returned by the guest. These details are also noted in the portion control book. This portion weight is compared with the recipe portion weight. Major variances are reported to the concerned. This exercise is done over a period of time for each outlet and all results are noted. For this purpose, ideally, a small table 1 to 2 packs as well as a large table 4 to 6 packs is randomly selected. Based on these results, inference is drawn whether the food returned is high due to excess amounts dished out or the food is not popular with the guest. The total items sold for that particular dish is also kept in view. Standard portion cost. Once the standard recipe is costed, we get a standard portion cost on the basis of which the controls get a suggestive selling price. This forms the basis for the executive chef and the manager F&B to decide the selling price for the dish on the menu, keeping in mind the competition. Standard food costs. As a norm, in many 5-star hotels and catering establishments, it is followed that the standard food cost be at 18% and hence the selling price of the menu items is decided to come at this standard food cost. Since there are items which are offered at a higher cost percentage than the standard cost and there are items which are sold at much lower cost percentage, it is a practice that the menu is an apt mix of the two and the standard cost is achieved by selling more items of lesser cost percentage and less items of higher cost percentage. Once all the recipes are costed, then the controls department goes through the items sales summary for the month and after reconciliation they arrive at the potential food cost. The number of portions sold into cost of each portion. This is calculated for all the outlets and a cumulative calculated to ascertain the potential food cost of the total kitchen. If all the standard recipes were done correctly and all the procedures followed, then there would be no discrepancies in the actual or potential food cost. Food cost control. Definition and nature. Cost control helps in volume catering establishments to guide and regulate its operating cost. Every volume catering establishing should work on predetermined objectives. Cost is defined as the expense to a food service establishment for goods and services when the goods are consumed and the services are rendered. Food and beverages are considered consumed when they have been used wastefully or otherwise and are no longer available for the purpose for which it has been cooked, served, or thrown away because it has been spoiled or even it has been stolen. The cost of labor is incurred when the people are on duty, whether or not they are working and whether they are paid at the end of shift or at some later date. Objectives of food cost control. The expenditure on food done in any catering establishment or hotels account for more than 50% of the total cost incurred by them. So, cost control is defined as the process used by managers to regulate cost and guard against excessive cost. It is an ongoing process and involves every step in chain of purchasing, receiving, storing, issuing and preparing food and beverage for sale, as well as training and scheduling the personnel involved. The particular methods used to control cost vary from one establishment to another depending in part on the nature and scope of operations. Objectives is to eliminate excessive costs for food, beverage and labor to exert some governing power over cost in all areas to ensure that the enterprise will operate at a profit. Two of the principal causes of excessive costs are inefficiency and waste. For example, storing food in refrigerators that are not cold enough or bottled beer in a warm sunny room will cause spoilage and excessive cost. So will the preparation of an inedible beef stew or the drink is poured down the drain. The cost of operation is increased, but sales are not, because the profit is essentially the difference between sales and costs. It is apparent that any increases in the cost that do not lead to corresponding increases in sales can have only one effect, a reduction in profits. Clearly, management must take steps to guard against such excessive cost, so food cost has to be maintained at predetermined levels to ensure satisfactory profitability of an organization. The various factors of the food cost control are analyzation of income and expenditure, pricing of food and quotations, preventing of waste and inefficiencies, data for management reports, obstacles to food cost control. In order to control the food cost, many systems are designed and developed by an organization to assist them into their day-to-day operations. There are various factors which make food cost control more difficult, which are as follows. Unpredictability of the volume of cuisines, perishability of food, daily variations in food production, short cycle of operations, multiplicity of low value transaction, high degree of departmentalization. In general, cost control means exercising governing power over events and situations such that an outcome can be achieved or prevented. Exercising controls generally means that there is some human involvement. Humans either take some form of action or prevent others from taking an action in order to achieve an outcome. It is important to point out that in the food and beverage industry, control really means controlling people rather than things. Consider the following. Food does not disappear by itself. Without help, excess quantities of liquor do not get into drinks unless put there by bartenders. Employees' wage calculation is not based on the wrong numbers of hours unless someone gives wrong information to the paymaster. Food is not consumed by rodents unless human beings make the food accessible. Customers seldom leave without paying unless staff members make that possible. Methodology of food cost control. We have clearly defined food cost control, also have discussed briefly the objectives and difficulties with its applications in catering industry. Now, a system has to be developed to control the food cost at various sequence of operations. All food service business, regardless of size and type, has certain process in common, whether the food service business is a fast food restaurant or a fine dining establishment. It must purchase supplies from purveyor either by phone, computer, email or web page, fax, letter or salesperson who calls at the establishment. Both type of establishment must receive the supplies when they arrive, and someone must verify that the quantity, quality and the price are the same. The food must be properly put away in dry storage, refrigerator or freezer when needed. The food must be taken from the storage and prepared for the customer who order it. Finally, food must be served to them. All food service establishments have to follow sequence of operation: purchasing, receiving, storing, issuing, producing, selling and serving. In each of these steps, it is possible for unwanted costs to develop. For example, a purchasing steward can order more of an item than issued, resulting in excess supply that can go bad before they can be used. Food can be improperly stored so that it cannot be stored and must be thrown out. In each of these instances, excessive cost incurred and profit suffers. Three distinct phases has been developed for an effective system. Phase 1 consists of a policy which are related to catering policies of the establishment and financial policies of the establishments. Phase 2 consists of all the day-to-day operations control which revolve around the establishment's catering cycle. Phase 3 consists of post-operational control. Purchasing. The type of food to be purchased for any food service enterprises can be divided into two categories: perishable, non-perishable. So, the food purchasing has to be done in accordance with them. The primary purpose of establishment control over purchasing is to ensure a continuing supply of sufficient quantities of the necessary food, each of the quality appropriate to its intended use, purchased at the most favorable price. Specific standards has to be developed for the following purpose: quality of food purchased, quantity of food purchased, prices at which the food is purchased. Purchasing is mainly concerned with searching, selecting, purchasing, receiving, storage and finally using the commodity in accordance with the policy of establishment. Receiving. The primary purpose of receiving is to verify that the quantity, quality and the price of each item delivered conform to the order placed, and exactly the value of goods purchased is properly accounted for. Receiving, and it is necessary to establish standards to govern receiving process. The quantity received should be same as that of quantity ordered, which can be verified by checking the invoice or the bill that comes with the delivery of the product. Quantity of the item delivered should confirm the standard purchase specification of the establishment. The prices of the bill should be similar to that of market quotation list given by the supplier. Storing. Primary function of store section is generalized into 5 principles: condition of facilities and equipment, arrangement of food, location of facilities, security of storage areas, tagging the date and pricing of stored food, issuing. In order to control food cost in a volume constraining establishment, one should not issue a single commodity from the store without proper requisitioning. There are two elements in the issuing process. The first is the physical movement of food from storage to food preparation areas. The second is the record keeping associated with determining the cost of food issued. Producing. Preparation of food requires volume forecasting, standardizing the recipes, standardizing the yield, standardizing the portion size, selling and serving. Control system related to sales should be able to clearly define and also account for the food and beverage that has been sold. For this purpose, a checking system, manual system, cash registers, computers should be installed in order to keep a track for the number of covers sold per day. The final phase of food and beverage sales control is food and beverage sales report, assessment of budget with actual performance, correction by the management if any problem occurs in the control system. Dear students, let's summarize. Forecasting the volume of business based on the trends and plan the production keeping in mind the availability of the ingredient, lead time, required manpower involved and scheduling the same and the equipment required. This exercise is important and should be done meticulously to reduce the cost in terms of overproduction, which leads to wastage. Thus, this module makes us understand about the various factors that are involved in planning for volume catering and also dispensing the order. It is critical that a standard portion size be followed, as a standard recipe will yield a standard batch size and certain number of portions. If we over portion, then we will adversely affect our food cost or profits, since there can be loss in incremental sales if the dish happens to be very popular. Since the guest will need not order more if already a bigger portion is given to the guest, and in case we underportion, then we will be cheating the guest and hence ethically wrong. Thus, it is important to consider all the production planning processes in order to run operations smoothly. Thank you.